Watem here, and welcome back to some more Umineko When They Cry. Just a bit of quick housekeeping first. So normally I try to keep like roughly a week to 2 weeks of raw content recorded, even if it isn't necessarily edited yet, just to have a bit of a backlog. I started releasing, and then immediately got sick. Now I'm out of backlog. So apologies if there are any coughs. I'll try to mute myself, and if I fail to do that, I'll try to edit it out. But I might be in the middle of saying something, so I might end up leaving it in. Just apologies in advance for that. Secondly, from the first part that's gone up on YouTube, I've noticed there's been quite a few recommendations for what was it called again? Something. There's like a. I've forgotten the exact name. You can look at the comments yourself, really. But it mentions Studio rather than the 07th mod version. So basically, from what I've heard, it's more of a full redesign of the engine itself. So I think I've mentioned it before, but the engine which Umineko uses is different from the Higurashi one, which meant that the 07th mod, 07th expansion, I think is the ones that made the original. In any case, they were more limited in what they could do. So the studio version actually frees up more of what they could do with it. Also fixed some stability issues and a couple of bugs as well, I think. And also something about including animations and stuff for later on. So I will look into it. I'll probably be doing that for the 10th part onwards. If you have any strong reasons against, I'd appreciate you mentioning them now. But without any further ado, I will start my timer. And let us continue. If I could actually type the right thing.
魔女だよ。バトラ君は昔聞かされたことない？魔女？
Yes, Beatrice. Why do they say her name?
って、この島の？
I think I already said this, but Rokkenjima is a small island, only 10 kilometers in circumference. However, that's actually pretty massive, considering that only the Ushiro family lives there. Was it here or there? Oops. Right, if you have to get the backlog, it's this. Yeah, it says here. So only the harbour and the area around the mansion were set up to be lived in. Beyond that, the island remained as untouched as when it was uninhabited. The vast and empty forest had absolutely no lights, phones, or people passing through. To understand how dangerous that is, you need to forget your common sense as a city dweller. After all, if you happen to fall down in a hole in the depths of this forest and sprain your ankle, no one would come save you, no matter how much you cried or screamed. Right, that's also what I was thinking when they said the Ishiro and Mia family live there. Some of the servants at least live on site, it seems. Anyway, continuing on. Then, once the sun went down, the forest would be wrapped in complete darkness since there were no streetlights. And since there were no signs, it'd be easy to get lost and confused, losing your sense of direction inside that dark forest. Nowadays, most people see a forest as a peaceful place. But to the people of bygone eras, before the light of civilization drove out the night, forests were as geographically separated from civilization as the sea. They were oceans above the ground. Fishermen who go out into the ocean are putting their lives at risk, despite their technical knowledge. In the same way, hunters who go out into the forest are in danger, despite having specialized knowledge of their own. If children were to go play in such a dangerous forest, something terrible might happen. Someone's parents must have thought so. Maybe grandmother first said it. Maybe it was grandfather himself. Or perhaps the story's been passed down over silence since ancient times. There's a terrible witch in the forest, so you must not go in. At some point, this ghost story of Rokkenjima was born. This is the legend of Rokkenjima's witch. That's why, when we talk about a witch on this island, we're referring to the master of that vast and savage forest. Come to think of it, when I stayed at this mansion as a little kid, during those eerie nights when the wind and rain pounded on the windows, I remember being terrified by a story of a forest witch who roamed around searching for human sacrifices. So, Beatrice, huh? When Aniki mentioned it, I searched my memory and was sure I recalled hearing a name like that when I was little.
なるほどな。しかし、あの魔女伝説の魔女にベアトリーチェなんておしゃれな名前がついてたとはとんと忘れてたぜ。じいさまめ、孫たちが信じないもんだからわざわざ絵に描きやがったか。
じいさまの妄想の中の魔女だよ。この絵を掲げた頃から現実と幻想の区別がつかなくなり始めた。私たちにとっては想像の中の魔女に過ぎないけど、じいさまにとっては彼女はこの島にいる存在。いる。だからそれを理解することができない私たちにもわかるようあの絵を描かせたって言うんだけど。気持ち悪いったらありゃしないぜ。
Yeah, that is fair.
お嬢様、親方様にとっては大切な肖像画です。親方様の前でそのようにおっしゃられることがございませんよう固くお願い。
分かってるぜ。頼まれても言わねえよ。
Jessica glanced at the portrait with an irritated gaze before turning away.
行こうよ。食堂にみんなを待たせてるよ。
お腹すいた。
Only a small portion of this island was controlled by the Yushiromiya family. All of the lawless remainder was the domain of the witch Beatrice. You might even call her the true ruler of Rokkenjima. I felt a faint revival of that unsettling sense of misfortune, which I felt when I learned of Chitari's god shrine being struck by lightning. And I remembered that Kumasawa-san tried to tell an ominous story about Rokkenjima before Jessica stopped her. I don't know what she was planning to tell us about for this island, but I do know one thing. It isn't the Yoshiromiya family that rules Rokkenjima. It's the witch Beatrice. That's right. After all, this is the Witch's Island. When I looked around, everyone was already heading towards the dining room. I hurriedly chased after them. We walked up to the huge double doors that led to the dining room. Genji-san knocked.
お子様方をお連れいたしました。失礼いたします。
The doors were opened, and we were invited inside. The dining room, which looked exactly like you'd imagine a rich person's dining room to be, had a super long table that was obviously positioned with no purpose other than to make the guests conscious of their rank. Our parents were already sitting in accordance with that ordering. Do they have a kids' table, I wonder? Or do they all sit at the main table as well? Okay. Let's see. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people to sit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 13. Yeah, it should be fine, I guess. The old bastard pressed us to sit. The only gaps in that group of people were the spots we were supposed to sit, which only made us feel our tiredness all the more. The seat at the head of the table, called the incipient's chair, was for the most highly ranked, reserved for grandfather. It was still empty. He probably wanted to show up last for dramatic effect. From the perspective of someone facing the incipient's chair head-on, the seating order went from left to right, with the lower-ranking seats progressing in rows of 2 further away from it. So, the left-hand side of the first row, closest to the incipient's chair, was where Uncle Kraus should have sat, since he was the second highest in rank. It looked like he hadn't arrived yet, so that seat was empty. Across from his chair, on the right side of the first row, sat the eldest daughter of the family, Aunt Eva, who was the third highest in rank. The left-hand side of the second row was for the fourth highest in rank. There sat my damn dad, Rudolph the third of the siblings. Across from him, on the right side of the second row, sat Aunt Rosa, the youngest sibling. At this point, you might expect their husbands and wives to come next. But no, it's the children. But nope, the left-hand seat in the third row, rank number 6, belonged to Jessica. Yep. Inheritance order, in which case the spouse has no inheritance rank. So they'll be at the end. So that's especially obvious since you've got all the siblings sitting next to each other without space for their spouses. Opposite her was George Anarchy. I sat next to Jessica, and Maria sat across from me. Then, finally, next to me on the left-hand side of the fifth row sat Aunt Natsuhi, the 10th highest in rank. Opposite her was Uncle Hideyoshi. Next to Aunt Natsuhi, in the 6th row and in the final seat on the left-hand side sat Kirie-san. The seat opposite to Kirie-san was empty, even though silverware had been set there and everything. According to this ranking system, that spot was where Aunt Rosa's husband should be sitting. Even though he wasn't supposed to be coming, his place was made up. Normally, ranking systems of this sort gave spouses equal positions as their partners, but the Ishiromiya family's system was unique. Maybe it's a remnant of male chauvinism. If you start with the assumption that a woman's womb is just something to be borrowed, the children of a direct descent would come first, directly followed by the grandchildren. In other words, spouses have no blood ties and are therefore placed at the end of the line. It's terrible, but by this system, my grandmother would be ranked even lower than me, if she were still alive. In their youth, they obey their father. After they get married, their husband. After aging, their children. That's the old saying, women have no home in any realm. Long ago, when I was still incapable of figuring all this out, I thought it was so great that we could all chat in our little groups, aunts, adult siblings with adult siblings, and cousins of cousins. However, now that I can re-examine the seating order after growing up a bit, it stirs up some very complicated feelings in me. Aunt Natsuhi, who was married to the eldest son and was the de facto number 2 in managing this family, sat to my right, which meant she was 2 steps lower than me in the ranking order. It was hard to imagine what might be going on inside her heart. That's why I made a small apologetic gesture towards her before sitting down.
お久しぶりですね、バトラ君。ずいぶん背が伸びましたね。
How many times is he going to get that?
はい。食ったり食べたり食事したりしてたらいつの間にかこんな身長に。
Okay, just making sure I wasn't muted.
さすが男の子ね。身長はいくつくらいあるの？
180かな。つうかおばさん、そこは食べてばっかりじゃねえかって突っ込んでくださいよ。
I feel like he said that previously as well.
ああ、ごめんなさいね。
After a short pause, she did laugh with me, but it seemed she couldn't quite figure out what she was supposed to be laughing at. This woman is Aunt Natsuhi. She's the wife of the oldest son of the family, meaning she's my father's older brother's wife. That's certainly one way of saying it. And yeah, that's how it's written, if you're paying any attention at all. Is it simpler if I just call her Jessica's mother? It feels bad to say it like this. While I didn't exactly dislike her, I didn't particularly like her either. She hardly ever spoke with us kids, and all my memories of her involve her talking to the adults about complicated things, with a scary look on her face. In fact, since we hardly ever exchanged words, I spent a long time trying to figure out how I should approach her, though my efforts seem to have ended in failure. I was just trying to listen to the music there. It sounded like a single note and then now it's silent. The silverware sat neatly on the table, but the meal itself hadn't been brought in yet. As a general rule, you couldn't start a meal until the person sitting at the head of the table arrived. So, as long as grandfather didn't come, lunch would be put on hold indefinitely. Not even the appetizers would arrive. Simply put, the silence in this room was caused by our parents enduring their hunger while they waited for grandfather to arrive. However, grandfather from my memories would always show up on time to meals like this. He was the kind of person who would never be so late that it kept everyone up waiting, especially after the entire group had arrived.
遅えな、じいさま。俺の記憶じゃ、時間に厳格な人だったと思うんだけどな。
Well, he is dying now, so that might be why.
まあ、6年前はそうだったかもな。最近はそうでもねえよ。というか、もう自分の世界オンリーって感じで、会食にも顔を出さねえぜ。さすがに今日くらいは足並みを揃えてくれるって思ってたんだけどな。まあ、私は来ない方が気楽で嬉しいけどよ。
ジェシカ
Yeah, that is a bit rude to say. When her mother scolded her, Jessica stuck her tongue out and looked away. No way around it. Might as well wait until our host arrives. When I glanced at the clock, I saw that it was almost 12:20. Or 20 past 12. If you're more used to analogues. Ishiromiya Kinzo, the aged family head of the Ishiromiya head family. It's the family head of the head family, I see. And there's another Jessica portrait there. Books. More books. Drinks. Books. Some kind of picture. Maybe a mirror, some other portrait or something. Chess set. Yeah, that's all I can see. This man could be seen in his study. The clock had already passed noon, but he didn't even attempt to rise from his seat. If he can be seen from his study, that means that, what's the word? English is failing me now. Then, I've forgotten the word, but in any case, it gives you the impression that there should be someone who can see him, there to be able to see him. In any case, clock had already passed noon, but he didn't even attempt to rise from his seat. I think I read that. With his spectacles on, he built up a growing pile of books with elaborate bindings, which he then read intently. You couldn't really say that he was having too much fun to stop. Rather, he filled the room with a sense of impatience, or perhaps a sense of impending danger, as though every second wasted was a tragedy. Oh, and some kind of text in Japanese that I have no hope of ever possibly reading. In the sealed room, a dense dust danced through the air, which was thick with the stench of chemicals that exuded a mix of suspicious odours. Those odours were somehow sweet and heavy. That makes me think some kind of incense, which possibly to hide the smell of decay from himself for being sick. Alternatively, the other thing that pops into my mind is that the incense itself is poisoned. If anyone with a normal nose came in here, the first thing they'd do would be to open a window and ventilate this room. Ooh, arms, another armor, and lots of books. And a desk. So yeah, then you can see bottom right corner there's the chest set with the seat we saw before. And based on that, I'm going to guess that there's 3 chandeliers in this room. Though that kind of looks like an electric one, considering it looks like bulbs, but on the other hand you can't see an electric wire coming down. So maybe it is actual candles? Who knows? The knocking against the study door had been going on for a while. A voice calling "Father" sometimes mingled with the knocks. As Kinzo heaved a deep sigh, he snapped shut the old book in his hands and slammed it on the table. Then he yelled at Kraus, who was still knocking on the door.
Yakamoshi! その音を止めぬか愚か者! 叩けば扉は開かれると誰が教えた? そのバカ者は貼り付けにしたぞ。お前もそうされたいのか?
お父さん、年に一度の親族会議の日ではありませんか。皆下に集まっています。どうかおいでください。
Kraus called out to his father through the door. Kinzo always shut himself up in the study, hating it when nearly anyone, even his family, entered the room. For that reason, Kraus had no choice but to call to him from the corridor like this.
私にかがうでない。皆とは何か、私をここから引きずり出そうとする者どもなのか? ならば殺してしまい。
Well, that's certainly harsh.
バラバラにして巻きにして魔女の炉にくべてしまい。
Dear.
その炉には鍋をかけて苦いおもぎを煮るがいい。黙示録の煮汁はそれでも私をここから連れ出そうとするバカ者どもに飲ませてやる。
Okay, now I get you might not like family meals and all, but calling it the broth of the apocalypse, that's a bit dramatic.
残りは酒につけるのだ。ああ、源氏はどこだ。源氏を呼べ。苦害の魔酒を用意させろ。緑の妖精のささやきが届かぬ。ああ、源氏はどこだ。源氏を呼べ。
On the other side of the door, Kraus, Nanjo, and Genji kept waiting for the master of the house, who stubbornly refused to come out. Nanjo? That's the doctor, isn't it? Remember? That also wasn't how I was expecting Kraus to look.
すっかり嫌われてしまったようだ。もう私の声では何も届かんよ。
Kraus shrugged as though saying, "It's no use," and smiled bitterly. From the beginning, he hadn't really expected his father to respond to his calls. However, since it was the duty of the eldest son, he tried as a formality.
金蔵さん、あんたの顔を見に息子や娘や孫たちが来てるんじゃないか。ちょっと顔を見せてやったらどうだね。うるさい、黙れ。私に意見するというか何条。
Sound effects sound a bit quiet. Let's see. No. Options. It's music / sound effects. So. I feel like that might be a bit high for some parts, but I'll go with that for now.
貴様など呼んではおらぬ。私は源氏を呼べと言ったのだ。
Sound effects are still quiet. But I don't want to raise for music higher. So I'll leave it at that for now. Maybe the studio version will be better. I'll be able to better balance it.
さあ急げ、すぐに呼べ。時間は常に有限だ。人たちはすでにラッパを構えているぞ。なぜにそれがわからぬか、愚かな羊どもめ。
Kinzo slammed an old heavy book against the table over and over. Poor book. That racket clearly expressed his great displeasure. Kinzo put his spectacles down and flew up from his chair. He spread his arms wide open, as if to sing to a packed opera house, as if appealing to someone, and yelled.
なぜだ。なぜにいつも私には邪魔が入るのか。すべてを捨てよう、すべてを捧げよう。その見返りに私は一つしか求めないというのに。ああ、ベアトリーチェ、お前の微笑みをもう一度見られるならば、私は世界中から美少を奪い取り、すべてをお前に捧げよう。おお、イナゴの軍団長たちよ、世界中から美少を刈り取り収穫せ。ああ、すべてが汚らわしい。すべてが煩わしい。なぜこの貴重な一日に私は邪魔を受けねばならぬのか。
This most precious of days. And it's not precious because of a family meeting. Maybe the day of the family meeting was selected because of this day, whatever it is. 'Cause I do vaguely remember something about them asking to change it, but then deciding to keep it despite it being awkward for it to be this time of year or something. So maybe some kind of thing happened on this specific date, which is then what led to the Shiromiya family's success. So then he decided to put the family meeting on that day. Anyway. That's right. I'm totally agreeing with you there. I wasn't able to mute fast enough. Him coughing is really making me want to cough myself. In sympathy?
何を怒鳴ってるのかもさっぱりだな。もう頭がどうにかなっているのだろう。
クラウスさん。
That's a bit rude as well.
実のお父さんに、そりゃあんまりじゃないかね。
親父はすでに死んでいる。ここにいるのは親父だったものの幻さ。いずれにせよ本人にここを出る意志がない以上どうにもならんね。
金蔵さん。
Choking coughs continue to pour from the study.
私は下に戻る。
A bit more sympathy, if you would.
ゴーダの自慢のランチをこれ以上無駄に冷ましてしまうことはない。親類たちにとって当家での数少ない楽しみだろうからな。
Kraus spun around. He looked at his watch, mumbling and acting as though he had wasted time doing something he knew would be in vain.
源氏さん、親父殿がお呼びだ。相手を頼む。
かしこまりました。
南條先生、食事に行きましょう。いつまでもここにいると、この甘い匂いで味覚までおかしくなってしまう。
Without waiting for Nanjo, Kraus went downstairs. So I'm wondering actually, is that seat for, what's her name? For, Rosa's husband, or is it actually for the Doctor? So I feel like for the Doctor, he's a family friend who plays chess with the house head. He's not going to be sent to the servants' quarters to eat, probably. Genji urged Nanja to go and eat. Nanja glanced between the study door and crossed his back as the latter disappeared down the stairs, then let out a deep sigh.
すまんが源氏さん頼みます。
はい、お任せください。
お酒はなるべく与えないように。
Which in other words means give him alcohol the instant you step through the door.
あれは常習性が強すぎる。源氏はまだか。何者が源氏を阻んでいるというのか。源氏はどこだ。源氏を呼べ。
さあ、ここはお任せください。
すみませんな。
Nanju bowed slightly and descended the stairs. Genji watched him leave, then knocked on the study door.
親方様、源氏でございます。
源氏か。何故私をこれほどに待たすのか。そこには誰もおるまいな。
はい。
Why does him being alone matter so much?
私だけでございます。
Kinzo returned to a seat in the study and pressed an old-fashioned switch on the table. Oh. What's hidden? Oh. After a small delay, the heavy sound of the door unlocking could be heard. Oh. Okay, so he's unlocking the door to his study. Kinzo was convinced that his family wanted to make a mess of his study. Or perhaps someone had once opened the window for some air and ended up scattering things that, to him, were important research materials, leaving him in a terrible mood. Kinzo had outfitted his room with a formidable lock, preventing anyone from entering without his permission, and thereby sealing himself in a jail of his own making. Genji, whom he trusted the most, was relatively free to enter the room, but even that didn't always hold. There's the time. If Kinzo was in a bad mood, even Genji wouldn't be able to enter. Anyone else would be limited to holding a conversation through the door, unable even to see Kinzo's face. Most of the time, what they got could hardly be called a conversation. However, this didn't trouble the rest of the family much. After all, it just wasn't worth the effort to disturb this aging family head, who was impossible to please and always stayed shut away, immersed in his research. I'll be ending it there for today. Before we finish, I'll just be going over the new things we've been seeing. Surely we've been introduced to Kraus now. Not sure why he hasn't appeared there. In any case, Natsuhi is Kraus' wife. She manages the household of the Ushiromiya head family in place of her husband, who takes little interest in such matters. She was in charge of all preparations and arrangements for this family conference. She possesses a strong sense of responsibility and a great deal of pride. However, neither her husband nor his siblings understand her very well, so her position is far from enviable. And the house head, Kinzo, the aged head of the Ushiromiya family, even though it has already been announced that he has just a few months to live, he's brimming with energy. Though he amassed a vast fortune in the past, he never made any announcements regarding the inheritance, which worries his children. He is strongly influenced by the West, and is a rabid fan of the occult. His study is packed with mysterious grimoires. Oh joy. Still don't know who that is, I mean, we know this is Kraus, but we don't have his profile yet. I'm just going to go through this. In case you want to read it, you can just pause. Because I'm pretty sure we've gone through all of these already. I don't think they're going to have changed, at least not yet. Wait. He's very highly regarded as a servant. She is not highly regarded as a servant. And I don't think we have any tips. No, we do not. Okay, well, I hope you all enjoyed that. Let me know any comments, any feedback you have in the comments. That's how words go. And until next time, see ya.